Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you brought a pen and paper today because we are going in depth into maps and there's going to be a lot to remember and a lot to talk about. So before we get started, if you like military strategy, tactics, or doctrine and seeing it applied to strategy games, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Also throw some book recommendations down below, especially if they have something to do with military strategy. I'm always looking for a good read. And there's a Patreon for after action reports, so make sure you swing on by, check that out, and see what's there. It's fun, it's free. Don't need to worry about paying anything. So anyway, let's get started. Today we're talking about this little mini map over here. This was highly requested by one of our community members. He was like, Joe, tell me what these colors mean. All right, buddy, and I'm going to tell you what those colors mean. We're also going to talk about the contour lines. So if you've ever seen a topographic map or contour lines, we're going to go into detail on them. So first things first, we're going to come over here. We're going to click this HGT icon. All right. What this does is it changes the map to a beautiful green, white, and red color. You can also see little red blotches right here and over here. These are areas of where you can't go. They're no-go zones, or the slope is so steep that you cannot cross these red patches. All right, or they're just general areas you can't go. So next things we're going to hit is we're going to hit the Shift H. This changes the color of your map. See how those red zones are now black or dark colored. All right, it's really your preference on what you want it to be. You can do this in the ISO view as well. That's Shift H, not Shift G. Shift H. Next, we're going to talk about color sensitivity. So we're going to go back to my favorite color, the default one. And then we're going to talk Control H. Control H basically reduces or increases the sensitivity of the color. So what that means is as we increase our sensitivity, it will add elevation, right? So right here, everything's basically green. It means, from what I'm gathering, it means that we're just not sensitive to elevation at the moment. Then as we increase that sensitivity, it adds more. It increases the sensitivity, therefore defining the elevation a bit more. We hit Control H again. It increases the sensitivity more to basically your standard map. Now you have your dark greens, your light greens, your yellows, your reds, your darker reds, and then your white. And then as we crank that sensitivity up a bit more, we become extremely sensitive to elevation. Therefore, what continues to happen is that any areas where there's elevation, we're just sensitive to it so we can see it. Control H again. As you see more, these low-lying lands where they're relatively flat, there's no elevation. You can see even though we've increased the sensitivity, it doesn't change much. But here where there's even a little bit of elevation, we can see that. So you can pretty much just use that to your advantage on how, like, basically how sensitive you want to be to elevation. So when you're planning your attack, you can see, okay, well, here's an area of elevation. How much is it elevated? All right, does it increase? Things like that. Okay, I want to know where all the slopes are. I want to know just even little slopes, and I just want to analyze those just to plan my attack around them. You guys will be much better at that than me. Next, we're going to talk about the colors. So in general, if we hit Control H and bring it back up, these green areas are always low-lying flat lands. So if we go look at our map in like ISO and then look out, we can see that it's basically all flat over there. It's low-lying, no elevation. Pretty much dark green. That's the basis you're going to base a lot of your elevation off of. And then we work our way up. We see it continues to change. We can also see green along here. So we know that this area, if we were to move troops, generally right down here, they'll be continually fired upon. They won't have really any cover, and they will be destroyed. Next, we're going to talk about contour lines. So if we go back to our map one more time and we click this right here, now we have contour lines. They're these light gray lines. There's a darker gray ones right here, and then you have a pure circle one, which is effectively or essentially the crest of this hill. So we can use that information if we're moving troops up these hills, that this is the top of the hill, whereas here's the top of the hill on this one. And next, one thing to note about these lines is on realistic topographic maps, they're going to be closer together as the elevation increases, which you have right here. So if we were to go look at ISO, we can see that the elevation is increasing Therefore, the contour lines get close together. And then if you look at like areas like our low-lying flatlands, you see how these contour lines are far apart right there. And if we hit Control H, we can see that basically those two lines define our flatlands. Turn this back off. Right, here's basically our flatland, and we can see that along the map. So as you cross these lines, you begin going uphill or downhill. That's one thing to note, is that as you send a unit across this line, he is either going uphill or downhill, and we can determine that by the distance the lines are apart. So we can see that this unit's going to be going uphill as he moves across each one of these lines. Whereas if he was going to move parallel or along these lines, he will not be traversing uphill or downhill. So he will stay relatively level. That's going to be really critical to understanding how you're planning your attack, basically the axis of your attack to set your areas of fire, and effectively like where you're going to isolate the enemy and set your ambushes, right? So if we were to move a unit along this line, he'll be not going uphill, not going downhill, but he could be getting shot from up here or down here. Same goes for this town. We can see that this town's relatively in a low-lying valley, so he could take mortar fire, all kinds of fire down in this valley. There's really no elevation change, so it's just a plain flat area. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about with the maps. You can go ISO, you can view it. It's really basic stuff. There's really no change to there's no stamina in this game. So as you can see, as we go uphill, as the elevation increases or decreases, we can see the height over there, 106 plus 1, but we can also see infantry or vehicle trafficability. It's not affected by elevation changes. So if we come over here, basically the same thing, right? 80, 80. Even though the elevation is increasing, your units aren't going to suffer from it. They're only going to suffer when they come into like areas of the woods, or if they enter a new tile. Like right, this is a dirt road, whereas this is a fence, and you're not going to be able to traffic that area very well. All right, so those are the basics of maps. I hope that video was even semi-useful. You guys have a wonderful day. Like, comment, subscribe.